podcasting since 2005. This is the King of Podcasts Radio Network, kingofpodcasts.com.
When I think I know everything about radio, another longtime radio veteran humbles me.
The King of Podcasts Radio Network proudly presents the Broadcasters Podcast. Here is the King of Podcasts.
Thanksgiving Day here on the Broadcasters Podcast, and over the weekend, I had planned to go and put an interview out. Some of the few interviews I've been doing with some broadcast professionals that I got the opportunity to go and speak with at length, and I'm going to play one of those interviews for you today. And just leave it up to me to go ahead and give the information about my guest. Meantime, if you haven't done so, make sure to go and check out the website, kingofpodcasts.com. I'm so lazy. I don't want to put everything on one page. You can just find everything on one page and then just start clicking away to wherever you want to go. All my other series, when you go to the Broadcasters Podcast, click on the logo right there, and then you can just go and find how you find the program, whether it's through the YouTube channel, whether it's Amazon Music, YouTube Music, Apple Podcasts, or Spotify, and all of the major podcast platforms. And if you'd like to go and donate, you can also do that as well from the website, kingofpodcasts.com. With that said, check out my interview, and I hope you enjoy it. My next guest is a seasoned podcast pop culture commentator, 2 decades of experience in front of the mic as a TV radio host, founder of the Gas Digital Network, and we'll talk about how he came from it. But first of all, reaches 6 million listeners a month, 22 shows on the whole lineup, and currently hosts a hit comedy podcast with Aaron Burr called The SDR Show, SDR, Sex, Drugs, Rock and Roll. Launched 5 years ago, ranks as one of the top comedy podcasts on iTunes. And prior to that, was the host of the nationally syndicated rock show, The Tour Bus, which ran for 15 years, 75 stations nationwide, emanating from WDHA in New Jersey. And also hosted for VH1 Classic and major rock events like the Sturgis Rally for all the bikers out there. I'm here with Ralph Sutton. Ralph, thanks for being on.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
So I got to get into the start of the terrestrial career, because when I look at rock music today, one other person I talked to a few years back, I think it was in 2020, was Dave Pratt, the morning mayor at KUPD in Phoenix. Mm-hmm. And I think about at KUPD at that time, longtime rocker. He left to go into, when it was offered, I think it was working at CBS, worked in the country, because country was where all the rock musicians went. They went to Nashville. And I feel like that was also changed because of the fact of how rock music had just changed. I think Woodstock 2000 always talks about was a turning point in the way things were with rock music. And it's been underground. It's not been the mainstream like I'd like to see it. I think that variety we had, all the way up into the 2000s, even to the 2010s, it's missing, because right now there's this homogenization of music that's out there that just doesn't feel like it's so digital, no instruments, except for in country, I would say, but not much else. The thing is that when you look at being away from into podcasting now, ever since changes happened, I saw that in 2016, Beasley Broadcasting bought WDHA and other stations. Of course, corporations come in, they decide to go and clean house. It's not, I don't think it's any testament to talent, but it sucks. And with radio's changed, no one's supporting or defending rock music. And that was something that when you look back at it, you're surprised that, no one's ever tried after all these years to try to go and bring back rock to the forefront, not in terms of the music, it's still out there, but to have tastemakers bring it to the forefront and let people hear it.
Well, let me ask you this question on that.
Yeah.
Forefront of what? Because there is no, radio doesn't matter anymore. TV doesn't matter anymore, right? So let's put that aside. It's not a relevant format. It's like wanting to dominate the 8-track market. Who cares? It doesn't exist anymore, right? So I see bands younger, especially now. There was a TV show that came out earlier this year called The Runarounds that embraced band culture. I'm seeing more and more guys like Sueco and a bunch of other younger bands that we just had Calva Luis on the show. These bands that are up and coming, that are embracing rock and roll, are they on? I mean, even Billboard doesn't matter, right? So the question that I ask is, can you fill seats? Are you getting followers? That's all that matters. And that to me is happening. Rock music does seem to start not single performers, but bands are coming back, which is exciting to me to see bands back on. We just had a new band on called The Dooms. That's very cool. So bands are coming back, but if you're looking for them to dominate charts are irrelevant. So I don't care about that anymore. What I look for is seeing shows being sold out, bands having followers online, and them selling tickets and merch, and that is happening. But if you're looking for, I don't know, a Taylor Swift-like event in the rock space, I don't think that will ever happen again for anybody. That's just going to be pop, spoon-fed music, and that, not to ramble on it, but back then in the 80s, which is I was a product of, that rock was kind of mainstream. It was mainstream. It was easily digestible, and it just pivoted to this. And it'll be pivoting again sometime soon. But I love seeing rock bands selling out venues, rock bands getting a lot of followers. A great new band called Jailer. There's so many, Geese is another one, that are getting arenas, not necessarily arenas, but giant venues sold out. And that makes me feel good. As a diehard fan of rock music, it is back in a way, just not in the traditional billboard radio way, which who cares?
Okay, well, I'll put it like this. Social media streaming, as great as they are, it's too broad. There's not enough time in the day for us to go ahead and try to sample every artist I see on TikTok or Instagram or YouTube. It's just too much. And so I get to miss so many people that are out there.
And you're always
platforms that are wide ranging that will say, okay, bring them up. We don't, we don't have an MTV. We don't have, I don't expect that technology to continue. I'll make that point clear. And I agree with you on that. But what replaced it? Something's got to be there.
So what replaced it?
For any kind of pop culture to be relevant, I want to see where, obviously there's an audience for it. I mean, look at every artist out there. When Oasis came back and decided to reunite, look at the buzz they got for that. Of course, streaming singles is not the money anymore for rock music. It's albums. And that's for any artist out there, I'd imagine. And the touring. That's where the money's coming from. There's no record labels that give out the support, no major record labels, because they're all in the catalogs. They're going to keep making money off the catalogs of everybody else until they want to. But I want to see something that's more narrowcasted. If there's somebody that has a large audience, like I'll say this, if there was an influencer that said, okay, I want to have a showcase, let's go and do it like a talent thing. And, I don't want, it's not The Voice, it's not American Idol, it's not any of those.
Those are all on irrelevant platforms. There's also a reason why, network television late night shows stopped live performances. It's too costly and not worth it. But I think you do get it in the podcast space. You are getting it there. You're getting people like my show, and I'm sure, dozens of other shows that are like, I look at when we bring on bands, because we bring on comedians, rock stars, actors, whatever, different groups. And I've said this on my show many times, I don't look at their social media. When I get a link to a band, I look for the audio of the song only. I don't want to judge anything else. I want to know if I like the song. And then once I like the song, then I'll look at the other stuff and maybe it'll sway me. But we bring on people that have 1,000 followers sometimes. Like something that's totally irrelevant just because I like the song. So I do think there are people that still do that, but it's going to be a microcosm. It's no longer going to be a Jay Leno or a David Letterman or Carson. It's, the hugest podcast in the world, which let's say Rogan or whatever, doesn't really bring on musicians. It's not what that's about. And then even if he did, he doesn't highlight their music. It's a conversation. We always try to get a live performance out of a band. We try to get people to know the band as people. We play silly games with them and stuff like that. Sure. It's just going to be segmented. There's never going to be a unifier again. It's just not going to be. It's too much content. There's too much new releases, not just in music, but in books, in video. When the barrier to entry has depreciated the way it did, where I could put out an album tomorrow because I don't need to know music. I can ask AI to write a song for me and I can release it. It just happened it was a number one country song that was AI and no one knew. So the trick is to just find bands that you're passionate about and support them. That's all that matters. At the core level, it's kind of gotten back to when rock started in the 60s and they weren't played on radio, and early 70s and not until FM started. But go back to then, and that's the way those bands survived, is people show up to the venue, buy a T-shirt, buy the album if they release one, and that's all that matters. And that it's going to be segmented. I hosted Shiprock for 10 years, and most of those bands were unknown when they got on Shiprocked and then built a fan base. And that's the way to do it.
So podcasting has helped to have the evolution of talk radio. Go over to there. So anything that's talk related, we had that set. Podcasting has been a wonderful paradise for anybody to go and get their word out there. And of course, if you have notoriety and popularity and a name like you have had yourself for so many years, it's a great place to go. It's a place to go ahead and at least continue to, ply your craft. But I look back at what you did on the tour bus and I say, okay, bringing a heavy dose of what is missing on the radio today. At that time, that's what the idea was at. But I still think there's a part of, I know the artists need to make money. I know that the artists, they got to be able to go and put themselves out there and wherever the money is. But man, I'm surprised not anybody has the money or the wherewithal to put something online that becomes viral and says, okay, here's what's missing in music and just give us a platform. I mean, there's public radio stations that try to do that. A couple of them around the country that are kind of be a little bit enterprise and okay, here's some artists we haven't heard from before, but it's like, where's somebody that actually has, a good sense of what music is and what should be heard that people would go ahead and catch with the masses. Because I still think there's something about something going, if it's something that crosses over, when that crosses over, okay, I don't expect an artist to stay up there and want to become popular. It's like, okay, here's your hit. You come back down and then people just follow you forever. Mm-hmm. I just thought there was something about that that's still valuable and it can still be done today because I think people need their viral.
What platform do you think what platform are you thinking? YouTube? Where else could it possibly be? There is no other.
Be a great spot. I think that's
right. And I also think that this guy that I like on YouTube, Professor of Rock, where he delves into the history of songs, and there's a few other people like that do, rock on YouTube and in-depth interviews and stuff like that. And I think that the only people to blame are the fans because now it is the democracy of all kinds in that anybody can start a channel, anybody could build a following, and anybody can start bringing on bands that they like. It's whether or not other people will watch it. I don't know. It's algorithms, it's quality of the video of the podcast or the video show, but it's kind of a beautiful thing now that there are no more tastemakers that decide what gets played on MTV. There's nobody deciding anymore what's in heavy rotation on a radio station. So the fact that it's just open to everybody, it's kind of cool, that you could become a TikTok star. I mean, even though now let's use in the comedy space, even though it's not been working that well because a couple of them have burned out already, but let's use Kill Tony as an example that blew up where now these open mic comics kill Tony and then end up headlining shows. Most of them are not ready for it yet, which is funny to see them crash and burn, but giving them that audience, it's wild how all of a sudden open mic comics are headlining theaters, it shouldn't happen that way, but it's kind of cool in a way that it does have. It's the same thing with bands like that. We had a guy on named Sawyer Hill, and he's big now, but when he started, he blew up overnight. And then he headlined a European tour as his first tour and sold out immediately because he went viral. So it is kind of wild that can happen in a way that back then you'd have to get not only radio support, label support, all the stuff that would require many, many contracts and many, many deals with the devil and percentages given up left and right. And now he's doing it. And it's like his father's his tour manager or something like that. Like, it's great that can happen now. So you have to take the good with the bad. You have to look at it from a positive angle, that there is a democratic look at this now that is fascinating. And that's what I think is what we should be embracing.
At the same time, I also know that while I enjoy the fact that I have, all these different platforms, YouTube and then Spotify, I pay the premium. And, I like the fact that, I used to go and pay $16 for a CD on a regular basis. And I'll tell you, I had no problem. If I saw an artist and I wanted to go and get their music and go ahead and invest my money into it, I was fine. And it was really about if you are willing to go and put money down for something that you like, whatever it is, whether it is a comedy show and watching an act or going and buying a CD for an artist that you want to hear the music because you found a bunch of their songs, a bunch of their singles good or whatever it was. There's not enough of that. And I don't know if there's enough, like you said, of quality where there's just too much room in the comedy area, like you said, for some of these open mic acts to get a platform. And, maybe they're getting viral and getting popular for the wrong reasons, but they haven't really they're just not going to go and resonate well. They'll play you Fly By Night. Who knows what they're going to do?
Well,
But
there was
who will be any of those people that could ever go ahead and carry a TV show or a movie, anything like that? Because right now,
you have to anymore.
Right.
You don't have to anymore. To me, that's what's cool about it. You don't have to carry a TV show, movie. Movie stars are kind of irrelevant now. And the joke or truth that I said about podcasting 10 years ago was the beautiful thing about it is anybody can do it. And the bad thing about it is anybody can do it. Because now there is such a, when I started podcasting, which was 10 years ago now, there was 100,000 podcasts. Now there's 10 million. So exponentially grew to 10 million, right? Which still sounds like, oh my God, 10 million. How am I going to compete against 10 million podcasts? Go be a TikToker where there's a billion people. Then it's like, then 10 million sounds great, or go get, if you could get 50,000, let's just use an arbitrary number, 50,000 people to follow you on Instagram or 50,000 people to watch your YouTube, you can make no money. You'll make no money. You get 50,000 people to listen to your podcast, you can make a comfortable living. So the barrier to entry, while now lower, is even lower in the podcast space. And to me, those are good things. That's wild that can happen now. And I'm doing it. So when I did radio, which was on for almost 20 years on about 100 stations at one point, I was on about 100 stations. So I had 100 program director bosses. And every week, somebody in Iowa thought they knew better than the guy in Kentucky, than the guy in California on what should be played on the show. And every week I'd be getting complaints. You can't say that here. You can't see it. You can't play that here. And it was a constant problem of having 100 bosses on 100 different stations that all felt they knew better, not just than me, but than every other program director. Now, whatever decisions I make on my show are my decisions, and nobody else can stop it, for better or for worse, because there is no powers that be anymore. And that's a beautiful thing.
I'll put it like this, too. And I completely appreciate where you're coming from. I know maybe what I'm saying, but the thing right now, it's probably, from the outside looking in, because I've only been in the industry for so long. I was always a fan for the outside when it comes to radio, when it comes to how music is done. But my thing is, I like when there were people that got a big platform and could push back, push the envelope, bend the rules a little bit and give people that probably wouldn't get an opportunity to go ahead and go out there. Those that would take risks. I don't know if there's room for that, because obviously there's not that many places to go and the doors open for that kind of thing. And just for me, it's like, I wish we had some place for also where, if it's a musician, artist, or whatever kind of talent there is, that you see where's the highest level you can go. Like, what is the level of success that you can reach? If you want to be able to go and, say, okay, this person reached this level, I want to be like them. I don't want it to be for somebody that's like, from 50 years ago, 40 years ago, 30 years ago. I want to see somebody that is now at the level I want to be someday, striving to be somewhere. The star search. Like, is there still a drive for that, or is that gone?
I mean, I think it exists every day in terms of what goes viral and what works. Like if you're a band, to me, if you're a band and you're selling well, and whenever you go out, you do shows. I forgot who the quote is from. If you get 1,000 people to show up, you could survive the rest of your life. I forget who said that, but that is happening now all the time, and that is what's great, is that it's gone back to the people. It's more where people will support what they want and what they like, as opposed to being spoon-fed what you're supposed to like. You can now go find what you like. And that I find myself constantly going on the Spotify, like new rock release channels, and seeing if anything new that I like, and find bands and find songs and people that I've never heard of that I'm like, get into. And I think that's great.
But there's short term and then there's a long term. I just want to see that there's a way for people to go ahead and say, okay, like even with influencers now on TikTok, Instagram, they might have like a one-trick pony. They might have one-dimensional, something that they do that everybody's getting into. Then what do you do for the next act?
Yeah, well, that's what happens to using the Kill Tony comedians as an example. If you blow up too early and you're not ready, you're going to flame out real quick, And some people figure it out and keep going and get bigger and bigger, which is great. Some don't. Like, though, again, not to keep bringing him up, but that kid that came off of that Kill Tony Cam that's now a cast member on SNL. So he took that and became something else. So there is ways to do that. And that's what I find fascinating, is that I love the fact that anybody can do anything. When I got my first job in radio, I think there were probably 10 radio jobs in New York, so that was it. So if I didn't get that job, my options were to move or to go into a different field. And I didn't want to move. So the fact that I got that job, I was like, great, I can start working in radio. And now it's like, okay, then I'll just start a podcast and just start promoting it and do the first 5 years of my podcast, I never left the house without stickers. I considered a day a failure if I didn't get somebody to subscribe in the real world and give me a review. I was on the story I've told a million times. I was on jury duty. And at the end of that jury duty, I had 11 new people sign up to my podcast because there was 12 of us, and I was going to make sure all 11 of them did, So, wow. And I did that for years, where every day was a mission to get people to sign up to the podcast, right? And that's what I just did it over and over again every day. And so that's how I made it happen. I took it out of the control of program directors or general managers from radio stations and pivoted to podcasting.
All right, so 2016. Moved into podcast. We're going to go into podcasting specific. We're going to leave the radio stuff behind. But, you had all the time that you came back. And the thing was, in 2016 rather, there were quite a few people that came from radio that were making their way into podcasting. I still will say over and over, I got the call on the Don and Mike show after Anna Nicole Smith died. And I remember when they asked me like what I did for a living, I said, I work in podcasting. They said, well, it's just the same thing as you working at McDonald's, kid. That's what they told me. And of course, they're in the podcasting now, both of them. But either which way, and I'm not judging that. It's like that's what that was the perception. But there were a lot of people that were making their way, and again, trying to find a good paid model. I think Tom Likas is a great example of bringing the new normal and putting that out there until he decided to go ahead and put it in the sunset. But either which way, Gas Digital, you've grown to the 22 shows, 6 million listeners a month. That's huge, and you found a spot. Now, the other thing too is that you've kept it where it's very distinctly a non-corporate. We know there's a million shows now that the iHeartRadios of the world or, Wondery or Amazon Prime, and all these others that are putting out there, all these celebrity-driven or somebody that has some followership putting out there. And, yeah, they're getting paid millions of dollars and getting somebody else like, oh, here's some producer to work with you to keep the show going so you can kind of act like you're a show host and doing those kind of things. But the thing was, you had the background to do this, and it was, I feel like, obviously the easier transition into podcasting. It was just a matter of in the years since leaving radio and being in podcasting full time, take away, give me some of the takeaways you've gotten from what you've changed when you did radio that you brought into podcasting, and now you've evolved it into what you need to do today.
Sure. Well, we'll start with that. The way I fell into podcasting was I was hosting Shiprocked, and they put me, asked me if I knew any comedians. I knew a comedian that was good for the show, for Shiprock, called Big J. Okerson. And I asked him to come on, and he was the comic, and I was the host. And there was a few other people on, bands and whatnot. They ended up partnering us to host a couple of events together. We had been friends already, and then we made each other laugh. We had never been in that environment before. And he told me, I think it was 2014, that he was doing a podcast called Legion of Skanks. And him and I should do a podcast together. And I said, podcasting is for people that can't do radio. I'm doing radio. So thank you, but no thank you. All right.
Right.
And then the course of that year, a few things happened where I started realizing, oh, this might be a thing. Podcasting seems to matter. Right. Yeah. So the next year I'm hosting again. He's a comic again. And I said, let's look into this. Let's see what this is. And we started podcasting together in 2015. And then Gas Digital started in 2016. And the way that what I brought sense of personal shows you how such a neophyte industry it was. We were on a network called All Things Comedy. Like we just signed the podcast because Jay knew one of the comics. I think it was Bill Burr and Al Madrigal, and they signed us to All Things Comedy. And it was a very new thing. It wasn't even really a network. It was more of an affiliation. And we weren't making any money. We were told at the time we were like the 5th biggest show on their network, whatever you want to call it, but we weren't getting any money. So I said, hey, look, I have radio contacts. I'm making money on the radio side. Why don't I make it an added value package where you spend a little more money and we'll add you to the podcast, and we could start making money that way.
Yeah.
And the people at All Things Comedy back then said, well, we don't know how to handle payouts and stuff, and we don't know So we're not going to do that. It sounds complicated, which is like, yeah, but you're going to make money. No one's making money. And they didn't want to do it. So we just didn't do it. And then I started finding ads on my own for the podcast. And within a year, we were making more money on the podcast. So that's what transitioned me full-time to podcasting. What I think I cared about more than everybody was audio quality, which wasn't happening back then at all. Now it's pretty commonplace. But back then, most podcasts were done on a laptop with a laptop mic. And that's it, you know?
Yeah.
So I really tried to figure out how we could escalate audio quality. I also was...
Well, the first podcast I had to do where actually people were on phones. That tells you how far back I got, 2005.
Yeah. And just
we didn't have
no
Skype or anything like that yet.
So to me, the biggest turnoff for any podcast was hearing shitty quality. It's like, I don't want to listen to this. It sounds terrible, right? So that was number one. Number two, I tried to make us a little more regimented in that an hour should be an hour. Give or take 10 minutes, it should be about an hour. And at the time, and that's if you want to do an hour. Do a half hour, do a half hour. Podcasts were all over the place. One episode would be 20 minutes. One episode would be an hour and a half. One episode would be 30 minutes. I tried to keep them all to be about an hour just because I felt there was something value added to know what you're in for. Like, if I'm going to start the podcast, it's not dealer's choice this week. It's going to be about an hour. So those little tweaks about audio quality, about keeping it focused for the certain amount of time was important, especially back then. And then I've always been tech savvy. And this is my second bedroom that I'm in right now. But I built us a studio that had multi-camera and multi-camera switching that nobody was doing at that time. Right. And I figured it out. The story I've told is that on my phone, I used Google Translate because at the time you needed a TriCaster. The thing was $15,000.
Oh,
I didn't have money for that. So I found a card that plugged into a PC from China that the instructions were in Chinese. And I used the Google Translate app to get the download link to install the drivers. And that's how I got it working. In the same respect, when I did radio and I had a show that was on 100 stations, then the satellite decaying orbit fell out of the sky and we need to switch to CD. At the time, a CD digital 1-8 was $10,000. I didn't have the $10,000. I found schematics online, downloaded it, figured out how to build it for $800, and then sold it years later for $1,000 because they were still expensive. But then we switched to digital. So finding ways to figure out and problem solve is one of my strengths. I'm not the smartest guy in the world. I'm certainly not the best looking guy in the world, but I'm good at problem solving and figuring out ways to do things.
I can't believe you did that. I remember the TriCaster vividly because I remember we had to go and get in with somebody else to go and buy that damn thing. And the other thing was just what a plunk. It's like an Avid machine for video. It's like just
I remember saying, look, at the time it's 2015. Like, there's got to be better ways to do this. I would call my friends that worked in video or worked at MTV or worked wherever, and they would just give me the boilerplate that they've been using for the last 50 years. I'm like, no, that's not the answer anymore. There's a way. Just like when I started in radio, they were all using reel-to-reel to edit calls and edit mix sweepers. I'm like, wait, I have a computer that can record audio. Let me figure this out. And they told me, I remember one said, well, if you can get 50 sweepers done, which is for those that don't know, sweeps from one song to another, then we'll talk about giving you a shift on the air. Them thinking I didn't even know how to do tape editing yet because I was relatively new. I went home, I downloaded a software, I edited 50 sweepers together using free software online that I found, burned it on a CD, and came back and I said, here's a CD with 50 sweepers. And they're like, how did you do that? I'm like, I figured it out. Like, I just figured it out, and things like that is what I think differentiates you. It's work smarter, not harder,
I love it. And you had to do that in podcasting because we wanted to always, because I think that's also the radio thing where it's like everything just sounded so good. Everything was set in a good environment. So like it would look good if you had somebody that had a camera in there or you had the audio. So like it was this, obviously there was just like this itch of yours. It's like, no, damn it. It doesn't sound right. Don't look right. I got to get this right. So like you're going past it's pushing you to even evolve more and just find a way to go and get to their point. I love that.
Now, by the way, I am constantly looking at the software we use to stream is called vMix, right?
Uh-huh.
And I feel, well, we've been using it for 6 years. There's got to be newer software. So my staff hates me because they're going to have to learn new software.
Right.
But over and over again, I used to offer my team, I'll give you $500 if you find a way to do something that I taught you, that there's now a better way.
Mm-hmm.
And over the last 10 years, no one's ever come to me with an idea, but I've done it at least 6 times. They're like, oh, if we edit this way, or if we download this, or if we use the AI this to do this, and then you're cutting your time down by 30%, making your life easier, and then most people, unfortunately, you're taught a way to do something and you just keep doing it that way. Sometimes not even asking, well, why are we doing it this way? And that's the important thing to look at. Try to keep an open mind. So I'm always looking for new software, for new editing, looking at the top new podcasts. Maybe they're doing things that I never thought of. Let's look at that. And people don't want to do that because it's comfortable to do the same thing over and over again, because you feel warm and cozy, because some of my friends go to the same restaurant, order the same thing all the time. I hate that. Let's go try the new place that just opened.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, I don't like the routine. There's certain things that can be routine, but there's certain things with just one variety. I agree with that completely. The other thing is, now you're already operating full-fledged well before COVID. What's interesting to me is that when we were all in lockdown, is that first of all, I think that's when we started seeing the change of, well, okay, we don't need so much of a professional environment to go and do shows. Everybody can do it, like you said, from your bedroom or from your library, whatever it is. Plus, I think people really took their time to go, and when they did podcasting, people started spending money on equipment. And then actually the quality of the podcast finally got a little bit better finally after COVID. And I think that's one of the best things that came away from that unfortunate mess that we had to go through. But I think that was something that I noticed a difference from, because everybody had better cameras, better microphones, and people were not afraid to go and be on microphones, not have a microphone in their mouth. And I'm like, okay, yes, you can do that. It's not just Howard Stern that did it. Everybody else can go do this. It's not that, it's like, I like that part. And I think also with all podcasting, especially when you see it on video, I actually like the fact that we're seeing it the way it is now, with all these microphones on, no lavaliers, all this kind of thing. Like, it's, the presentation can be a little bit, stripped down and be brought up like this.
Well, look at Joe Rogan, who is, arguably the biggest podcast in the world.
Yeah.
That guy's making, I don't know what he makes. Let's just say, for argument's sake, he makes $50 million a year. I don't know what he makes, but let's just say that, right? His operation is 2 people. That's his operation, right? And what's wild is, I had this thing designed in our studios that are little pop-up boxes that sit in the table flush. You pop them up, and there's a place to plug in your headphones, a cough button. You can charge your phone or plug in a computer, and it has a volume, audio headphone volume, right? And they're branded Gas Digital. I just think they're cool, right? Joe Rogan came in, did a show there at our studios. He's like, oh, I love these. I said, I'll get you the manufacturer for it. I got him the manufacturer. A couple of weeks go by. I was in California with my business partner, Lewis, and his producer called Lewis and said, oh, we got those boxes. Is Ralph around? I said, yeah, I went there. And the crazy thing is, this is 10, maybe 8 years ago now, 7 years ago, the biggest podcast in the world did not know how to wire an audio box. And I said, why am I showing this to you guys? This makes no sense. Have an audio guy on, at least have him on speed dial. What if I wasn't here? It makes no sense. But it shows you how bare bones something can be now. You don't need the crazy budgets anymore. And that is beautiful. When COVID started, I saw the writing on the wall that the city was going to get locked down. We went to Gas Digital, the studios, and I said, get every show on the phone, find out what they need. Do they need a mic? Do they need a camera? Do they need a computer?
Yeah.
And we put Ubers, all the shit in Ubers, and sent it around the city to all the shows they needed, because we weren't going to be there, And then we never missed a beat. When the lockdowns happened, because we had been used to doing Zooms with remote guests all the time. We were used to putting graphics up on Zooms. We were used to getting rid of the talk back. We had done that all already. So we were looking better than broadcast television.
Oh, you're right.
And for immediately better. And I was like, wow, we look better than the Tonight Show. We sound better than Colbert. It's wild, because we had been doing it over and over again. We were done.
And you had the celebrities that started coming in to try to do their own thing, and everything sounded horrible. Nobody was helping them out. They needed a Ralph Sutton to help them figure something out.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny. It's also, though, with the celebrity thing, which makes me laugh, not to go back to radio too much, but I remember when Tour Bus started to grow and radio syndication was becoming a thing, every week we were getting these in the studios, new shows hosted by various celebrities, right? And the same thing, which happens in podcasting, happened in radio over and over again, where they do a dozen episodes, it doesn't take off the way they hoped, and they drop the show. So like the same extent with podcasting, there's 10 million podcasts. I think 50% of them are abandoned already because, I'm a celebrity. I didn't get 100,000 views right off the top. Screw it. I'm giving it up. So there's so many that just need to be, purged from there to really the 10 million is probably more like 4 million or 5 million. But because a celebrity finds out, A, I can't sustain a conversation for an hour. B, I don't have the rabid fan base I thought I did in this platform because people don't like to jump platforms. I know you from YouTube. I know you from music. I don't want to go listen to you like that happens. So it is great, again, to watch the way this all kind of levels out.
Well, and the celebrities, also the ones that are still around, are the ones that have already been getting paid a lot of money even beforehand. But then at the same time, it's like, well, it's interesting where celebrities are. For people that are doing podcasting, I like the fact that podcasting, if you're going into podcasting, it's not a step down for anyone
anymore.
I don't think it is, because I think there's a lot of people that have thrived, found their second career, their second life, and have extended their careers by doing podcasting. And I think a lot of comedians have done a great job doing that.
Oh, yeah.
And, and I think also it's a part of that when you're coming into it, you're not sounding old. You're not using the same tired act. You're actually still following along and staying relevant and staying in with the times. You're still current. I think that's a great thing about that.
But I would say
just going to your voice.
The main thing that bothers me about podcasting is people that are doing it not because they want to do it, but because they're getting paid to do it or they feel they're supposed to do it. You have to want to do it. My happiest hour of the day is when I'm going to do my show. And if you're not feeling that way, you shouldn't be doing a podcast, and that's the same thing with almost any business. Like if you're trying to be an entrepreneur and starting something, if the thought of getting out there and grinding and doing what you love for a bigger picture isn't exciting to you, you probably shouldn't do it because it's going to be thankless. And anytime someone asks me if they should start a podcast, I say, yes, if you think you're going to make money within a year, then don't start because you're not. You're not going to make money for a year, at least. And that's even if things go great. Unless you're a celebrity with, 10 million followers that's going to get a payday. If you're looking to start grassroots, you ain't going to make money for a year, at least. And even then, it's not going to be great. But do it because you love it. And if you can't talk about what you want to do over and over again, it's not going to work out.
Now, I've been at my YouTube channel for going on 9 years, and I'll tell you, I still can't get it monetized. I finally got enough subscribers, but not enough to go ahead and get the watch hours, whatever, to go ahead and just even get that part. So I make a little bit of advertising, of course, the programmatic. So we got on every one of these podcast hosting platforms, but that's about it.
Well, I'll tell you what happened to us, which is worse, is the SDR show on YouTube had, I think, close to 100,000 followers, and then they shut us down because one of my producers accidentally forgot to edit out a porn clip. And they didn't even give it, we said, it was a mistake. We take it down. We're so sorry. Good luck.
A warning, yeah.
Yeah, good luck. We were done.
Or some strike or something. Yeah, that's horrible. That's horrible.
Porn, with nudity, it's different. It's not a copyright strike. You are out.
Oh, yeah. Pretty much. Now, I was going to mention this too. Now, and this I think is important with every podcast. And I also feel like, while I love what Joe Rogan does, for me, it's one of those things where, if a show is guest-driven, guest-intensive, for me, I want to have a reason to go and come back and go back to that podcast because I like the people on the show. It's not the guests you bring on that gives you a reason. And I can tell you there's too many podcasts that I go to that I'm only going to watch or listen to because of the guest. And it's not because somebody's on there regular. I mean, I do podcasts that are monologues. I don't do a lot of interviews like I used to. But the thing is for me is that I got to make sure I do a show that people come back for me and consistently come back. And I'll see the metrics and try to keep building that little audience that I got, make it something more. But tell me about that part is the fact is that...
The biggest mistake I ever made, just so you know, was that I made the SDR show guest dependent. If I could go back in time, it would have been something that... Jay doesn't do the show with me anymore. We have a new co-host named Aaron Berg. But if I could go back to talk to, me of 10 years ago, I would have said, don't do guests. Figure out something else because I'd rather have half the listeners than I do now that don't care who's on. Whether it's just me and Jay or whatever, that would have been, that was the biggest mistake I made. But the way the show started was that I was still doing radio. Jay lived 4 blocks from me. So I would say hey, Tesla's coming in to do the radio show. So I asked him to hang out for an extra hour to do the podcast. So just come by. So that's how the podcast started. We're just we got this band coming in to do SDR. to do the tour bus. So they'll hang out and do SDR. And that's the way it started easily enough. So that's how we built originally. But had I known now, I would have said, just don't book guests. I also wouldn't have called it sex, drugs, and rock and roll, because that gets us demonetized a lot. Because if you're going to start a podcast right now, find a topic that you can either monologue on or a best friend that you can do shows with. 2, don't do anything dirty. Don't call it anything sexy, because in this landscape that we are in, you are going to get demonetized. We are shadow banned on YouTube now. Our views used to be in the tens of thousands. Now we get 20 views. And I know it's shadow banned because I subscribe to my YouTube channel. I don't get notified when a new video goes up. So they don't tell you, right? So that's why Gas Digital was created, was that we can create our own servers, put up whatever we want. You get your free following the best you can, but you have the paid subscribers. When we started, there was no thing as Patreon. Patreon didn't exist yet. We did that before them, and then that became commonplace. But at the time, it was unheard of.
That's amazing. And I agree with the part when it comes to monologues and being able to put shows out there. I have been trying to push the needle because I have a show that's called The Praised and the Bottress. It's just about society, dating culture. And so far, TikTok's the only one that's really gotten after me. So I can't put any clips or any kind of material for that show on there. But if I want to go and talk about, sugar daddies or OnlyFans or porn industry or whatever there is, I can only go into those industries and talk about it, but I have to keep it within like some kind of guise.
Yeah. And then the stupidest thing now, like you call it corn instead of porn. It's like, it's ridiculous. Like, what are we doing here? We're not children. Like the answer that they don't want to do this, the answer would solve so many internet problems. On your settings, it says, am I okay with pornographic or political or controversial? And you just have on and off of things you're okay with. And then it's on the creator to tag it as being this. They don't do that because they make money with ads. And if people are saying, I don't want political, I don't want sex, I don't want this, then they're not going to make as much money. So they don't do it. But that would solve the problem immediately. Just like if we were to make it where there's one area, one website, let's call it myidentification.gov, right? You get your profile from there, and only one official profile per person is given, tied to you, removing anonymity so that these people that have vendettas that create 500 fake profiles to try and take someone down wouldn't exist anymore, because every person has their one verified profile, end of story. But they don't want to do that because then they lose all their followers. They can't say they have 100 million, they have 30 million. So that kind of shit is what prevents this stuff from happening. And it's just logical answers that they don't want to do.
Ralph, you bring out into a great point, because the thing is, even I remember, like, doing any radio, we were still under FCC rules. We knew what the rules were, terms and conditions. We don't have that kind of rule here. We have cancel culture. We have things where if you say something political or something that's a little bit out of bounds, that you're going to get, you might get stricken down for it. And that's what that really sucks. That's the part of podcasting that was the liberation of it that I thought we were going to have. But social media has caused a problem with that.
Right. By the way, it's funny, when I was doing radio, something happened. I'm going to be honest, I don't even 100% remember what it was. We're talking 20-something years ago. But some people were mad about something I did at a live event. I don't remember what it was. I'm sorry. On something stupid, like a joke I made, whatever. And on the radio station, DHA at the time, they told me they got over 200 emails complaining about what I did and that they were going to have to take me off the air. And I said, could you at least send me the emails? I would like to see them before we have this discussion. They did. And I, because I'm tech savvy, was able to look at the headers of the emails and said, do you realize that 198 of these came from the same IP address? It's the same person with dozens and dozens of extra emails. He is trying to make it look like there's a problem, but there's no problem. It's 3 people. That's it. And when I showed them that, they're like, oh, okay, forget it. And that was it. But if I didn't know how to do that, I would have been kicked off the air back then. It is just kind of wild. So thank God I knew that.
Was it the guy's name, Jack Thompson?
I don't remember his name, to be honest. Again, I don't remember the story.
That's the guy that went after a lot of radio hosts. Neil Rogers down here was, beloved down here in talk radio. That was a guy that regularly went after every talk show host down here for whatever reason, because that was just an asshole.
There's that guy that was doing it in comedy for a while that, famously took down Shane Gillis from SNL. And so there are people, and they're usually, I always forget who said that, but you'll never meet a hater that's doing better than you. and that could not be more true. If someone's taking the time out to crap on your social posts or on whatever you're doing, I guarantee you they are not happy in their lives, in whatever they're doing. There's no way, I keep bringing up the same people, but Joe Rogan is not going to take time out of his day to crap on my podcast. He's just not. He's got other things to worry about, right? And in the same respect, if whoever is doing it, it's because they're a disgruntled podcaster. They tried, it didn't start. They're not getting followers. So they just take it on you, or their wife just left them or something else, and they're taking it out on you. So my general response to most of these people is, I'm sorry you're having a bad day, because it's insane to reach out to someone you do not know and crap on them. It's insane. I've never left a negative comment to anyone in my life on social media. I've just never done it.
No. And the thing is, too, is that, if you're going to get in trouble, if you do something wrong, it's it should be the ones that actually did something really stupid. Okay, Bubba the Love Sponge. Okay, you roasted a live pig on the air. And you probably shouldn't got fired for that. Okay, you just deserved it. I'm sorry. Right. But either which way, now with what you're doing with, no, I was going to ask you this too about when it comes to podcasting, because I know in a lot of work, I have to go and work with clients. I get the wonderful job of doing what's basically brokered radio. So I have these people that pay for time to go and do a show and get their own podcast, and I have to train these people. And more I've gotten the habit of listening to their content, going back, giving them feedback. And I've gotten to the point where I've gotten my own tenets of professional podcast hosting, and just looking at where a lot of podcasters do not take enough time to appreciate their listeners. Where, when you're doing your show, you want to make sure the listener's interested in what you're talking about. You just can be, I'm doing this just for the fun of it. Some people can get caught up in the fact that, all right, I'm having a conversation with a friend of mine, and, it's uninhibited. It's, we're eavesdropping. But then the thing is, you still want to think about in the back of your mind, well, listeners going to be caring about this. Are they going to like this? Are they going to flip? Are they going to skip to something else? I want to keep the attention span.
Right. I mean, I agree with you. I think that, cultivating a stickiness to your podcast where your audience wants to be involved, whether with Gas Digital, we have a live chat. So we call out the chat a lot, We're now implementing where long-term paid subscribers will get badges, will get specific emojis that are only available if you've been a member for a year or so. You get special rewards if you've listened to every podcast that came out on Gas Digital in a week. Little things like that make people want to keep coming back, because gamifying things, it works. The reason why the gaming industry was never really effective is gaming works. People love the idea of finishing and completing tasks. There's that great book where they say when you're trying to get tasks done, you put a bunch of jelly beans in a jar and an empty jar on the next side. And every time you make that phone call, every time you send an email, you put one jelly bean from left to right. And it starts to affect your brain where you want to do it more. You want to make another call. You want to feel like a sense of accomplishment. It's why I make a to-do list every single day. Because there's something about ticking off to-do list items that make you feel good. And if one of those things is to make your audience feel valued, is something that we take great pride in. I rarely argue with it, even though it's not the true euphemism. It's not the customer's always right, although we say that. It's the customer's always right, except in matters of taste. But I answer 90% of the email complaints that come in. If there's an issue, I'm the one that's getting them. I have a tech team, but I'm the first person. If it's something that I can't respond, most of the time they think it's AI. They say very funny, it's AI. I'm like, no, this is me. It's Ralph. This is my personal email. If you have a problem, email me back and I'll deal with it. Because that kind of reward system, so to speak, or value is something that you can't buy. It's something that you need to do.
So you bring up feedback, and, in radio for so many years, you had phone calls. You had people that go in and get in the phone hybrid. Okay, here's line one. And we've had to change and deal with, we might get comments to one of our podcasts or YouTube or wherever else, or we get emails, or we get the chat room like you have right now at Gas Digital. Mm-hmm. That transition had to have been kind of tough, because it's not like that, that back and forth talking to have somebody and having to just go ahead and just take the feedback that's there and just trying to fall in with the chat and just fall in with the feedback you can get to keep the interaction going. How tough has that been for you?
Yeah, well, I would say that nothing beats, and I'll be telling you something you don't know. nothing beats live radio. When the old radio show, the tour bus, we were live on about, I think at the height, live on 20 stations, and then the other like 60, 70 were tape delayed a week. So they get CDs. That was probably the most. Then when we eventually switched over, it was like 100 stations that were all CD and just 2 or 3 live that were Greater Media at the time before Beasley bought it. But live across the nation was an unbelievable feeling. Also, no delay. We had a delay, but at the beginning we didn't have a delay. So that was terrifying also. For the non-radio people, you have a dump button that if somebody curses, you could dump out of it. And it probably didn't show up until 5 years into my run on the radio. So you had to be super careful about what you said and what a guest said or what a call. You couldn't take live calls. You had to do pre-recorded calls. But like, I remember things that will never, like Kevin DuBrow, unfortunately passed away, singer of Quiet Riot. He lived in Vegas, and he would call us every week. We gave him the hotline number to tell us where he was when the tour bus came on. It's like, because everybody in Vegas was listening to us. So it's like, I'm at the gas station, and the car next to me was playing the tour bus. Just wanted to say that. And he would call in every week. And then it was so cool. That live of the moment, we have that now a little bit because we do stream live. We do our shows live on Gas Digital, right? So
right.
The chat is interacting with what's happening live on the show. But it's not the same because even on the best day, maybe 1,000 people are watching live, right? But in radio, we had 250,000 watching live or listening live, so that's a very different animal. And at the time, we were one of a few shows that were nationwide. Now you're one of millions of podcasts. So I can't explain what it felt. There was nothing that felt like that, and it never will be. But embracing the new reality is all it is.
Now, I haven't really delved too much into Gas Digital and to other things that you've done, because it's also been where, after radio, you obviously diversified into other areas of media, even running your own book.
Well, that was our joke book, but yes.
Well, it was a book. I mean, come on, that's still like a venture. Like,
I'll show you dear, because so what happened was during right before COVID, my father got sick and passed away.
Oh my God!
And it's a little bit more. It's like 10 years ago now. And then my uncle got sick and passed away. I had to take care of him for a few years. And then COVID hit. And if you remember, we're all baking bread like jackasses and gaining weight. So I still don't know. I would say this. I don't know what my maximum density was, but I gained over 125 pounds, right?
Wow.
And nothing like being on a comedy podcast to hear people call me, a fat this, and you're going to die. You look miserable. So then in COVID times, I decided to start running. I ran every other day for 2 years, got to the point where I could run a half marathon, ran 10 half marathons around the world in 10 different countries, and lost about 110 pounds. I still got a few pounds to go. But then the same jackasses that were making fun of me, all of a sudden I was like, well, what did you do? Nobody wants to hear, I ran every other day for 2 years and started eating healthy. Like, no one wants that. So I put out a book as a joke, and I can say I'm a best-selling author, and it's for your video listeners or watchers. It's called The 100% Guaranteed Guide to Weight Loss and Fitness. And I told people, if this doesn't work, I will give you your money back. And so that's how I promoted it. And it was 200 pages. Chapter 1 is Eat Less. Chapter 2 is Work Out More. And then 198 blank pages. And I sold thousands of them. I hit number 33 in Amazon because I can say I'm a best-selling author, even though it took me 5 minutes.
But you did the book before AI, okay? Yeah. And you lost the weight without Ozempic.
I didn't use Ozempic.
Hey, man, that's a big accomplishment right there. Come on now. That's a huge thing. Because people can't do it. That even just a couple of years ago, there's so many little things you can also use to cut around and not do the real work. Just saying.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm a fan of that stuff if it helps you, as long as you're also working out and eating right. The thing that bothers me with the semaglutides and the GLP-1s is that people are using it in lieu of changing their diet, in lieu of working out. If you're taking it just like with AI, it's the same thing. If you're using it as added value, so to get you from A to B faster, I'm all for it. If you're using it exclusively, that's a problem. So like with me also, very often I'm like, I'm doing a game show and it's going to be, this and that. Give me some ideas of what we could call it. And AI will give me 20 ideas. They all stink, but sometimes one of them is like, oh, there's something there. And then I make it something of my own. And then I used AI, but I didn't really use AI. Or if it's going to be an intro to a game that we're going to air once, I'm going to say, make me a funny cartoon intro for a game called blah, blah, blah. And it'll make it. And I play it once. And that's great. But don't just use AI. Just like don't just use a GLP-1 if you're still eating like shit and you're not working out. You're just going to get the droopy face from GLP-1s because you're not working out. You're losing fat and you're losing muscle. But if you're working out with it and you're eating right with it, then you will lose weight positively.
So I should make mention that you put out such great points here when it comes to the health side. You have a health podcast, Good Sugar. You also do on that I've seen out there before. So there's a lot you put into, and obviously there is no shortage of what you can talk about and what you've been doing. It's really great. And again, next year, when exactly will it be 10 years for Gas Digital?
10 years Gas Digital next year. I started SDR about a year and a half before. So SDR has been on the air about 11 years and change. But May of next year will be 10 years of Gas Digital. Actually, April.
Amazing. Then now, again, 22 shows available. And I saw a Godfrey has a show on there. You have The Thing Is, True Dat, a lot of great shows.
All Your Garbage started on there. Tim Dillon started on there. It's pretty wild. All Your Garbage was maybe a month in and they came to us, but Tim Dillon started with us. A bunch of other comics came through us. Like we used to do the T-shirts for Matt and Shane's Secret Show. Like we used to do stuff with Jim Norton. Like we've helped a lot of. I mean, I used to be the person that like a lot of these guys that got huge would call me. Like Andrew Schultz, I had to show him how to set up an RSS feed. You know, like these things that happened years ago. You know, so it's just kind of funny to see them all get so big. It's great.
Amazing. But a testament for you that the fact is that you got into here so early. And I always look and respect those that got into this podcasting space early from radio and saw the writing on the wall, saw that, the chance of jumping in here so early. And
I want to say a quick funny story on that, then we can wrap, is that I was hosting this event for like 5 years called the M3 Rock Festival in Baltimore, Maryland. About 20,000 people. And they would have, like, in radio, there was the local radio station was the main host of the event,
It was 98 Rock, Chris?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. And then we were the next biggest thing. The tour bus were on however many stations at the time, let's say 70 stations, whatever. So in the back where I always use the term radio row, for those that don't know, when a band comes off stage, the backstage area, in orders of importance, are all the radio stations, magazines, podcasters, YouTubers, whatever, in a row, one after the other. So the headliner comes off stage, they're going to hit 98 Rock and do a little interview, maybe before or after.
Yep.
And then they might go one or two down, but it's only the new bands that'll go 12 down, 15 down, because they're looking to promote themselves, right? And so it's a great opportunity for bands, up-and-coming bands. Oh, we'll do the whole radio row. It happened. So we were second in line the first year. We were third in line the second year. We were fourth in line the fifth. And then the last year, we were the last people in line. And what was in front of us now? Podcasts, YouTube, Spotify. And I remember saying, like, oh, okay, that was the year after when Jay told me to start a podcast with him. That year I hosted that. I'm like, oh, okay, this is a thing now. And I need to take it seriously, because we were literally the last. We didn't lose any less audience. It just was radio was becoming less relevant, especially syndicated radio. So that was my eye-opening weekend when we were literally the last stop on that radio row tour.
That's amazing. That's why I have one of my shows called Podcasters Row, because of the whole idea of Radio Row. That I want to be one of those people. I don't care where I am. Just give me a spot. And the thing is, too, is that, this is a great point, too. When it comes to guests, and I make this point as well, is that give me any guest and I'll get a great interview out of them. That's the other thing, too. Is that I have too many people that are coming into podcasting. And I can imagine with you at Gas Digital, if people are asking for a dream list of guests right off the bat, it's like, listen, you need to be able to just do good with a guest, whoever it is. Right. Make them sound important and special. So for me, I don't worry about that part. The thing is, I will find something wonderful about these people. And you know what? Most likely they always have something fascinating to go into. Because until a couple of weeks ago, before I had you come on, I didn't get a chance to hear your show. I didn't get to hear you in New Jersey on Rocket or the tour bus. I never got to hear any of that. Right. I wish I did. But the thing is that getting to go and know all this and researching, going down the line, this rabbit hole, learning about Ralph Sutton, I was like, okay, that's the point about having any guest on and making him sound great and having a great time in the interview. And I really did have a great time talking to you about this. So
I appreciate it.
Before we finish anything up, let's go and just direct people to gasdigital.com, gasdigital.com, GAS.
We're standing, by the way, Gomez and Sutton. It's me and my business partner, Louis J. Gomez. So it's Gomez and Sutton at the Gas. And we just thought it sounded better than SAG.
That is very good. And now, real quick, you take a minute to go and tell people about how they should go ahead and sign up, be able to go and help out and support what you're doing.
Sure. Well, I just think just listen anywhere. You can follow the SDR show anywhere at the SDR show. My other podcast is called Good Sugar, one word, which is a health podcast. We have a store on 3rd and 69th Street. It's all vegan, no single-use plastics. But, I just think you should listen anywhere you want to listen or watch, whether it's YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, whatever. If you choose to subscribe because you want to get access to the shows early in HD, commercial-free with the live chat, that's at gasdigital.com. But really, I want you to be a fan first. There's no reason to subscribe unless you're a fan first.
Also, I saw your own website, IamRalphSutton.com, that shows everything you've done. It's, you're quite a library of things that you can go through. A lot of time to go spend on that and just work your way through. Again, Ralph Sutton for the Gas Digital Network. Hey, thank you for being on. I really appreciate the talk, and this was really fun.
Thanks for having me, man.
Once again, thanks to Ralph Sutton for being on with me on the program. There is some news that I did not get into this week, but I will next week about Warner Music and Sumo getting together on a deal. The AI and their big record label will combining together on a deal to go work on licensing. And there's other stuff coming out there when it comes to AI. We'll probably touch on that next week. So come back. Remember, the content is king, and the control of your content is in your hands.